Testing? Testes? 1, 2, 3?
I don't know shit about fuck.
Are you fucking Canadian?
I like sucking.
Come on, man.
Legit bad podcast.
He has a legit bat.
Welcome to Costco. I love you.
Hey, how's it going? Sorry for that abrupt stop all the time. I don't know how to fix that.
At least you didn't do a fart in the intro.
Oh, hang on. There we go.
There you go.
How's it going? It's Legit Bat. I'm Joe. This is Jen. Ben made it today. Yay. Oh, he's lagging, so he's just going to do a hat tip. And we got Jeran from Jeranism today. Happy 420, everybody. Grab a doobie or a drink or whatever your pleasure and come hang out for a bit. I know I'll be doing that from time to time. But Jeran, how's it going, buddy? Good to see you.
Excellent. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so tell our listeners where they can find you and what your whole show is about and what you do over there.
Well, first, you have to tell me what legit bat is, because is there non-legit bats or?
Yes, those are the small ones. So it came from a Workaholics joke about his dad's dick. And this is kind of the abridged version, but it ended up being a kind of an inside joke about like whoever said the wittiest thing of the night. So we actually do have a physical Louisville Slugger that says legit on it.
Nice.
Yeah. So it ended up just being a whole thing, and then it stuck, and now we're stuck with it. So that's just what it is.
I've heard magic stick before. I've heard, telephone pole and tree trunk, but I'd never heard legit bat. So I'm glad to add that to my vocabulary. Thank you.
Anytime.
And as far as my show, I'm on Rokfin as well. You can find me at Jeranism on Rokfin, also on YouTube still, but I'm kind of shadow banned. So I do some of the shows there, like the first parts, and then we go over to Rokfin, and I also do some crypto stuff. That's basically it.
Oh, yeah. So what have you been talking about in your show lately? This, like current events or what? Because we just kind of get on and talk about whatever, so I don't really have a goal or a plan like usual. So what have you been talking about lately?
We do the same thing. On my Friday show, I usually come up with some sort of topic that I kind of highlight. And then Thursdays, we have a show we do called the Baby Truther Show, where we lately have been interviewing somebody and just trying to see different beliefs on things. Because it's kind of funny in the truth community, and a lot of people have different beliefs, and they get very upset at each other. It's like, relax. We can all, we have open minds. You should be allowed to believe different things. So it's kind of meant to show people we can have different beliefs. Some people believe Kennedy didn't die. Some people believe he did die. Some people believe he's a good guy. Some guys believe he's a bad guy. You just kind of have to roll with the punches and just appreciate that we're able to listen to people with true opinions, which is getting very rare today because most, everybody on TV is being fed what to say and how to say it and what to believe. And the news is telling people what to believe. So few and far between those of us who are able to come on here and actually just give our real opinions.
Yeah, I call it entertaining ideas without actually accepting any of them at all. Or
Right.
like what people like to call cherry picking is gathering things from different sources that maybe agree and then, kind of putting it together. But I always try to tell people our show is not about coming on and trying to school you on anything, or I don't even like the whole truther label. It's more, ours at least is more of an entertainment show. It's just like, somebody called it conspiratainment the other day. It's more like, yeah, we get on, talk about weird shit, but we're not really taking it that seriously. Some shit is serious, but I mean, I'm still going to play farts in between.
I think it's important, though, too, to, like you were saying, Jeran, to be able to get on and talk about different topics and just see where people are at with it. That's what we do as well. And that's important, especially in this community, because if we're going so far away from the mainstream media as to say, we literally don't believe anything you say, then it becomes, you have to get to a point where, okay, what is happening? And you can't just decide right away. You have to ask other people who maybe have different ideas. You can tell what's a lie, but what's really the truth? And it's hard because people just bind to what they believe so hard, even in this community. It makes it really difficult.
Which is the opposite of being open-minded as well, which is strange.
Which is strange, right? When I first got here, which was, 2015 or so, it was like that. It seemed like that. Maybe I was just naive. And then maybe 2017-ish, something like that. Then it just seemed like whether it's egos or it's like everybody has to believe what I believe, or else you're a shill or you're a disinformation agent, which is just ridiculous because you should recognize that we believe things different today than we did a year ago, and different than the year before that, and different than the year. So everybody I'm talking to is at a different place in their truth journey. And I also hate the moniker truther now. I don't like that either.
Yeah, I choose to not really associate with that. I mean, we get called it all the time, but I'm like, you heard our show. We're not anything like it. There's plenty of serious shows out there for you to get some actual information, like James Corbett or Charlie
Right.
Robinson or any of these. Those guys are actually serious and they know what they're talking about. We do not. We came on here to drink and smoke and have fun. So
Pass
yeah,
fast
it
food.
drives me nuts. And that whole, yeah, you don't believe what I believe, so therefore you're a shill. Right? I can't even process that anymore. Like the newest thing with the snake venom, I think it's crazy and wild, but who fucking knows? I mean, you have people for years don't drink the tap water. There's fluorides, chlorine. They're poisoning you in the water. Snake venom comes along. They're like, you're fucking crazy, you shill. We haven't really even talked about it because I'm like, I'm kind of over it. But did you have any talks with anybody about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's been brought up, and like you said, I'm one of the people that just plays the middle. I mean, I heard it; it wasn't compelling to me. Seemed to be definitely reaching. I remember learning in the past that you can drink snake venom; that it's only because it gets injected into your bloodstream or something. Like you can drink a whole bunch of it and you're fine. So then I was like, well, that wouldn't do any good to put in the water. But anyway, I just, yeah, I mean, I still want to hear things, and I never want to just dissuade somebody from research, right? So why would you? Because that's how you discover new things. And when there's new things, they're always going to be different than what you currently believe. So if you believe one thing about uh, COVID, and then somebody comes along saying that, I just don't know why we have to jump down people's throats and call them shills or disinfo agents. But no, and that's how I look at everything, right? Does it match my worldview? And I put the stuff that does in the truth column, and I put the stuff that doesn't in like the back office. And then sometimes down the road, 6 months, a year later, you'll hear something and it will remind you of somebody who said, and you're like, oh, I got to go back and watch that, or oh, now that does make sense. So I think that all things have to be kind of weighed like that. You can't. It'd be ridiculous to jump down somebody's throat the first time you hear something about anything. You know?
Right.
Yeah. I
That's
mean,
why I didn't put much stock in the snake venom thing either, but it was kind of one of those, oh, that's interesting and weird. And I heard the dude, Dr. Artis or whatever his name come
yeah,
on, I think it was Crow, and he kind
yeah,
of went through how he came to that conclusion. And I'm like, I mean, a lot of that lines up, but it could be anything else. I just thought it was funny.
right.
People were like, snake venom, they can't catch that many snakes to put in the water. It's like they synthesize shit. Like, come on. That one's not
Yeah,
even a hard one.
I had some people giving it a hard time too, and I get it. And it's there's a lot of disinfo in the truth movement for sure, and that's why we just have to be really vigilant. I think I used to think, oh, it came from a truther, it must be true. Truthers don't lie, this and that. But then I quickly realized that they'll lie just as much as anybody else. So you just have to keep watching somebody. If they lie to you once or twice, I mean, that's when I kind of start drawing the line, because if I can tell that they're lying, not if they made a mistake. So if artist makes a mistake, if he thinks that his research leads him to snake venom, then good for him, and he has every right to voice it. And then people can go look into it, and they can dig through these papers, and then somebody will be smart enough to say, no, it's not true for this reason or that. But I still, what do people want him just not to say anything, even if his research leads him to that? And I've just been somebody who's always been somebody who can speak out about things and not really give a shit, knowing that I'm going to get shit for it. I talk about
Yeah.
population, I get shit for it. I talk about history, I talk about the year zero, and things that I know are just not correct, and people get so upset. I mean, I made a video, Stonehenge is fake, people lose their mind, um, but all I'm doing is just giving my opinion, and my opinion is simple. Like with Stonehenge, there's videos and pictures of them rebuilding it in 1950. So you can't. I was in school and they'd be like, we don't know how these blocks got up there. They could never, and it's like I've seen now pictures of cranes lifting the blocks up there. So now people say, but they were up there before and they'd fallen down and we had to put them back. Okay, well, why don't you teach that in school? Why do you make it seem like, why don't you say, oh, we don't know how they got up there originally. When we got there, they were on the ground and then we replaced them with, they just don't teach you anything like that. They just like to give this like folklore, this kind of, wow, so old, these stones that were stacked and we don't know how they were stacked. So I don't believe in much anymore, especially history, nothing prior to 1900, really. I mean,
We've been talking about that a fuck ton lately, especially Ben. That's Ben's thing lately. But yeah, so that's what when you see pictures, like I'm not even discounting your what's it called? I took a hit. What is it called? Stonehenge. Uh, it's when you see pictures like that, how much can you believe of pictures or history as well? And we got to the same point where we're like, I don't really believe anything anymore. So then you're just left to kind of parse through every bit of new information you get. And I don't want to be the guy that's like, that's fake, everything's fake. I mean, obviously some things are real, but it's so hard to
Yeah.
distinguish now. But
Well,
being able to
I
hear
mean,
somebody talk about something with an open mind, and then either telling them they're wrong or deciding they're wrong or whatever, that's also kind of the scientific method, peer reviewed type shit. Sorry, Ben, I cut you off. I know you're laggy. Go ahead.
no, you're fine. I was gonna say that's like the best and scariest place to be is when your soul falls out of your asshole because you've heard so many things with evidence support that you finally get to a point where you're not believing all the stuff that has changed your mind, but you're also not believing the narrative anymore. You're just right there in the middle going, fuck, I don't know anything. I don't know shit. And then when you get to that point, that means that everything that you thought you knew comes into a different perspective. And anything that you learn after that is taken with a different perspective because there's this whole backwards, like you said, history that really, if you think about it, we don't fucking know anything about. I mean, there's a reason why the common quote is history is written by the victor. Like we don't know. We weren't there. And we all know that history books lie.
It wouldn't matter if we're there, right?
Like,
Look
fuck.
Look at COVID. Yeah. We're here for COVID, and they're lying about it the whole time. So,
and know that when all of us are dead, whatever the history books say 40 years from now, 50, 60, 70 years from now about the great pandemic of 2020 is probably going to be completely different than how it happened, which is also a complete lie for what actually happened at the time it happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes it tough to navigate. And so all I can do is just worry about myself, right? And what I present, try and have good enough evidence for that and why I believe it. And then the things that I don't have good enough evidence for, I don't talk about. That's why I hate people call everybody shills. Such a joke, because I don't call anybody a shill because I don't know, number one. And number two, if I'm wrong, then what does that person think about me? If I came on here and was like, Joe, you're a shill, and you're not, you immediately have to think I'm a piece of garbage. Like, well, who is this guy? What is he saying? And there's been so many people that have called me that for various reasons, you name it. And it's like, all right, well, just, now you have completely discounted yourself and as your research, and it even calls into question some things that maybe I learned from that person, right? Maybe I believed because I thought they did good research. Now they're saying I'm a shill. You're like, well, now I got to call that into question too. So it's pretty sad when you got these people that want to talk about people rather than events and what's going on and things that we can at least talk about. But you're right. You're never going to. I don't even know if you can find the truth. Let's say that. Let's say all of us took over the whole earth tomorrow. They give us, here's the keys. You got it. You're in charge. Where are we going to go find the truth? I mean, we wouldn't. There isn't such thing, really. I mean,
probably.
Yeah, probably you're right. But I mean, even if we opened a safe at the White House and in there was a, spiral bound notebook that said the truth, and we started reading through its pages, we still couldn't even guarantee that that's the truth. So,
well, and somebody would read it and say, "What a shill," So.
Right? Who wrote this? We don't know who wrote it, so it's not true. Yeah. So it's difficult, but I feel better now than I ever felt before believing in lies. So even though I was kind of asleep and just going through life and everything's fine, I would rather not know any truths. I'd rather get to the end of my life and everything I believed turns out to be false. However, if I came to the beliefs myself, I'm happier with that than being told. There's no way the purpose of life is to be told everything. Go sit in that chair. We're going to give you all the truth. You read this book, regurgitate the truth, and then anything that's ever going to come along that you need to know, somebody else will tell you, which is basically what most people think life is.
Yeah. I'm starting to think the purpose of life is to try to figure out what the fuck this is and I don't want to get into flat earth tonight. That's been going on in our Telegram all day, but I did. So since you brought up Stonehenge, have you looked into the pyramids at all? I know that's kind of a hack fucking thing to talk about, but since you brought up Stonehenge, you brought this on yourself.
Yeah, I certainly don't think they're the date that they say. And it does seem like could be one of two things. I think that they know where they came from, but they're probably recent. And whether or not they were built by like giants or something, I don't know about that. Or they could just be like carved out of some sort of stone or something that rather than blocks that they kind of built, maybe carved it out something like that. So I don't know about it. I mean, that's but I do know like the shafts that point to Polaris. They have they say that the shafts used to point towards the former North Star, which is funny because it means that between 4000 BC or whenever they say they were built, and now they were pointed at nothing. So we just happen to live at the perfect time that they're pointed back at the North Star, and then they won't be pointing at it again in a couple of years. So we're told, or like in 70 years.
Wow, weird.
See,
Maybe that's because the poles will shift by then.
I don't know. I think Polaris has pretty much been where it's at for a long time, and that's why they built it when it was pointed at Polaris. So I think that all of, well, that's tough to say. This sect or this set of humans is very, very recent in my mind. Couple hundred years at the most. And then the previous civilizations, I mean, how can you even have evidence to talk about that? But it looks like maybe the pyramids were built by a former civilization, but they could be also built just a couple hundred years ago and by some sort of technology that we haven't rediscovered yet, or who knows. It's
Yeah, we'd like to talk about you said anything before the 1900s, and Ben's day is what, 1890 or 1860, one of those two.
Ooh, and he said
It-
this set of humans, so I like
Yeah.
that. That's like where all this little like trial and error experiment. Anyway,
right.
go Ben.
Like the reset, they seem to do wipeouts.
Oh, was I supposed to talk?
Was he frozen? Oh, I thought you were frozen.
No, I was just listening. I didn't know that was my cue. Yeah, just from other things that I've heard, whether it be Corey Hughes or again, it's one of those things where I don't necessarily buy all of it. It's just very, very fun to at least entertain and imagine the idea that it could be possible. The whole Tartaria mudslide idea, global wipeout, the fact that it's more recent history that we do have more literature and things on. The way that everything went between roughly 1860, the orphan trains, the fact that all of them would be around adults when they made the summit in 1890, the formation of the Zionist or whatever around that time, the fact that they started or that they have admitted that it was also that year, I believe, where they switched from teaching flat Earth to teaching the heliostic model. And so I'm like, I don't know that all of those dots connect at all, but at this point, I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if everything we were taught was just completely the other direction, because it does seem like whether it be astrology or something of that nature, like Joe and I were always raised that astrology is basically heathenistic in comparison to Christianity, and now there's been a lot more of those links, whether it be Micah Dank's work or so on and so forth, where you start to realize that not only are they not polar opposites, but they're actually very, very joined. And that to me screams that there's way more discrepancies in history, which if you even just took out a few of them, there are dots to connect that at least make your mind go, I don't know. And if that's true, what else is?
Well, that's why I like what Jeran said about this batch of humans, because we just talked about this recently too, about the kind of what seems like was a great reset in the late 1800s, where you have all these cities that were built up for like millions of people, but you don't really see that many people in there, or they're on dirt streets with horse-drawn carts, but they have these crazy buildings. And there's just some things that just don't fit together very well. And the orphan train thing is a big one, because where'd they all come from? Why is there so many of them? And did they grow up to be our current ancestors? Like, maybe they were just the newest Westworld batch, and they had to fill them in.
Maybe we're the first set of humans. And as you get closer and closer to finding out the truth, they throw the Tartaria shit at you. They're like, oh, okay, well, you're really close to finding out that you are just an experiment and you're the first ones. There's no one before you. But Tartaria mud flood stuff, that's for like the special ops people who like get in and they're like, okay, all this shit's bullshit. And they dive deep and find that.
Right.
Could be.
Yeah, I don't know what to think about anything anymore. Like we talked about, I think before the show, it's just there's too much information out there, too much misinformation, and too many shills. I mean, so many shills.
Well, they put it. They seem to put it out there now on purpose, at least from what I've seen. And I don't know who's doing it, but it's like somebody's putting out fake posts on Telegram and things like that, and then they get shared 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 times, and you're just kind of like, oh man, we're up against the wall. I mean, it's already hard enough to point out their lies and to research that stuff, let alone to have to research stuff coming from truthers. You would expect the truther who posts it to research it, but I've seen so many things in this last year or even 6 months, even less than that, that just some story comes out and people share it and it gets shared like a ton. Or um, I'm trying to think of, there's like a video the other day that came out with Vladimir Putin standing there. He's speaking in Russian, of course, and somebody put the subtitles on there, and he's saying like, "Oh, all the leaders of the world want to depopulate the earth," and that's the very first thing he said. I'm like, okay, this is bullshit, and yet it got shared like 40,000 times. I was like, guys, how would you think that that wouldn't be the biggest news ever? That Vladimir Putin said that the leaders of the world are trying to depopulate the earth. Like, wouldn't you check that first to make sure before you just share? Like, oh, we got to share this. Look what Putin's saying. It's like, yeah, but you're smarter than that. Putin's not. He's one
Yeah.
of. He's a World Economic Forum graduate, just like the rest of them. So it's just funny. I don't see a lot of discernment. People love to be the first to share things. So oh, I got to share this. I got to share this. I just saw it. And I'm never like that. I just want to at least take a little bit of time and figure it out for myself. But it does make for a lot of work, and they make it very easy for the normies to just go to Snopes and basically, nope, Snopes says it's not true. Snopes, because people today don't want to think. They don't want to think for themselves. They're actually deathly afraid of it.
Yeah. Well, there's so many accounts that I've unfollowed for that same reason. It's the most preposterous stuff that I'm like, I'll look into anything, but that's just ridiculous. Like I don't know what to think about this whole all the celebrities in Hollywood are transvestites or
Can't stand
trannies, whatever they.
I think it's
Yeah,
the
it's just like what?
dumbest thing I've ever heard. Yeah, it happens all the time. It's a sign to me that the elite have done exactly what they wanted to do, because now you've got guys that, I mean, I've heard people say Jessica Alba is a guy and Megan Fox, two of arguably the best looking women in the world at that time. And so now you've given the elite so much power that you think that they can take a boy and turn him not just into a girl. I'm like, go look at uh, Bruce Jenner, okay, or whatever it is now, whatever you call it, and that's what they look like. Like they're not taking boys and turning them into the best looking women that possible. So it's just a disgrace. It really is. And again, if you found one, okay, who cares? Like there's this whole video. It's funny the other day I said I've never had a video that I disagreed with 100%. And there was a video somebody made where they went through all these UFC fighters and said that they're all men, female UFC fighters. And yet when you like look for evidence, the evidence is always like, look at her shoulders, look at her hips. It's like, yeah, she fucking works out. Like, what do you mean? She's not going to look like a supermodel. Supermodel's going to get her ass kicked in the UFC.
That's a lot of effort to go through for what? Like what's so that people can find out and talk about it and be like, look what I found. I mean, there are some things like Michelle Obama. I would totally
Right,
believe
exactly. I
that
agree with
was a dude.
Yeah.
I've seen Schlong through
Yeah.
her dress flopping
about-
around like an
He
anaconda.
called her Michael like a couple times. Obama called her Michael a bunch of times. So you just slipped up. Like I've never slipped and called my wife Mike. It's never
Yeah.
happened. Sorry.
Hey Jim. I mean
Yeah.
Jen.
Yeah. How many times has he done that? You might want to worry if it's been too many.
That's
No,
where the actual research comes in, though, and that's what people don't want to do. Like you were saying, there's
right.
people are exactly the same. It doesn't matter what side they're polarized on. You can take the template and apply it on either side. So
Mhm.
that is exactly what the media does. They can get in and say anything about something that they think we would agree with in this community, and
Right.
some people are going to get sucked right in and not even pay attention. I hate that. I see it all the time on Instagram.
Yep.
Yeah, it's rough, and I don't really know what to do about it other than just I'm gonna do my own thing on my own channel and just let everybody else, because I'm not gonna go policing people and, oh, if you're gonna share something you have to put it through this first, or I don't believe in any of that. I just think people need to think twice before repeating those things. I mean, there's people. Uh, Cameron Diaz is a guy, and things like that. You're just like, like, what difference does it make? Even if it was, which it's not, it's still like, what difference does it make? Are we supposed to? It's like they want us to stand in awe of the elite. Like, look what they can do. Everybody we ever believed in is not this, and I'm just not like that. So it's tough. But again, I am a believer that you could say whatever you want. So I'm certainly not saying the guy who made that video or somebody who wants to talk about that stuff shouldn't. I just don't know if there's really a lot of use to it. But it is everywhere now. It's like the in thing to do is to call everybody a man. If I'm on my channel, I say something about Jessica Alba. Within 2 minutes, there'll be somebody in the chat that says Jessica Alba's a man. Just
That's a dude.
Yep. And then you're like, well, what is the evidence? The evidence is they have like some clipped video of her saying, I'm a man. And that's it. And it's like how they show it. It's like, oh, yeah, you're right, Dan. I didn't know that.
Yeah, evidence versus proof.
It's just, yeah. And then again, you're like, these people went to high school. You can go look up where Jessica Alba went to high school. You can go look up where she went to junior high. And you can imagine that somebody of the class would be like, that was not Jessica Alba. That was Jimmy Alba. Right. I mean, that would come
Yeah.
out. And people that are trans are proud. Usually they're very proud to let people know. They don't hide it. They don't
Especially now.
Yeah, they don't become Cameron Diaz and be like, I'm just going to be this fake woman my whole life and nobody's going to know that I was born a man. It just doesn't really happen. So it doesn't even make logical sense anyway.
At least one of them would have come out by now just for the publicity. I mean,
Sure.
that was all to me. That's all that the Caitlyn Jenner thing was. It's like, oh no, I'm fading from the
Yeah.
public eye. I'm a lady. No, now everybody look at me.
Yeah, it's weird that that's such a big thing or why people find it so important. But I do think it's scary because then what you have is you have a bunch of men who already don't act like men anymore, who now are so afraid of women that they won't talk to them thinking that they might be men, even good-looking women. And I also think it's I bet you if we look at all the guys doing it, they're very unattractive. And I say that because it makes men probably feel better about good-looking women. Like, I wouldn't want her anyway because she's a man. So it could be another reason that they're just call every woman a man, and then this way you didn't get rejected, you rejected her.
Right, sour grapes. Yeah, it was a man anyway. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I didn't
Well,
want her.
as far as all the stupid shit out there, I've just learned to, especially the last 6 months to a year, is just tune a lot of it out. Actually, I guess it started more like at the end of 2020 with all the Q stuff. I didn't know anything about that up until about the election, and all this crazy shit started being blasted everywhere. I was like, this is a strange thing that's happening right now because everybody was so divided on it too. And then, of course, after the election and the inauguration, they're doubling down. They're to this day are doubling down on it.
To this day.
And
Yeah.
I don't know what's sadder. Like, I kind of feel bad for them. Like, if they're right, that's fucking amazing. I don't think they are. I think it was a whole huge drawn out psyop. But I mean, it's kind of hacked to say everything's a psyop too. But what was that?
I'll give you what I think it is. So just like Jen just said, that they know us really well, right? They know us better than we know ourselves. This is why they want you in a belief system, because when you're in a belief system, you're very predictable. So I think that the Q thing was an attack on Christianity, really, because they knew that they could say they're demonic, they work for Satan, they're raping babies, and all these things get people very they believe it, and the Christians already think it's the end times. So you could basically say anything like that there's the president's not right and he's actually underground and there's going to save these babies, and it just is something that they can latch onto, and it always seems to work. That's why I think being in the middle is the best place to be, because then they can't predict what you're thinking, what you're going to do, what you're going to say. But I went to a Jesuit high school, and
Chill.
yeah, exactly. And it's actually what I think it's actually helped me, because they taught us both religion and science, and it made me disillusioned. I didn't understand why. I was like, well, I don't get it. Why would I go from religious studies, learning about creation, to learn about biology? And well, it's because the Jesuits want you in a belief system. They don't care which one. They don't care which one you go to. They don't care whether you go hard on religion or whether you go hard into science, because both are belief systems to where you actually give away all of your autonomy. Think about any science believer. So somebody who believes in science does not have a belief of their own. They have zero personal beliefs. They only believe what they're told to believe. And if you ask them, well, what do you think about, the Higgs boson? They would go look it up, and whatever science says, they'll come back and tell you that's what they believe. So that what a worthless existence that would be. And then religious people, unfortunately, are a lot the same. Not necessarily all of them, but certainly people that are literalists, Bible literalists, or they don't really have an option to believe anything other than what their book tells them they have to, which is scary, because why would you attribute some things in that book to God if men write books.
Well,
Yeah.
and the crazy part with that too is that both of those two sects of people, they outwardly will claim that anyone else is absolutely crazy. It's
Mhm.
like as you said, they're literalists. Like they believe that every word of the Bible is true. They
Mhm.
believe that if this study was done with this many people, that it must be true. And it's
Mhm.
like, but the Bible books were written by man, and the science studies were done by man. Like, you can't really trust either one of those as definitive any more than you can trust yourself when you have diarrhea and think, oh, I could fart right now. It's just not going to work out. You can't just sit there and wholeheartedly trust that shit.
Sometimes you can works out, but sometimes
Also,
not.
that.
I was late on
You have
that
to
one,
put,
sorry. But yeah, the Christian answer to men wrote the book is that God wrote it through them. And every time somebody says that, I'm like, isn't that called channeling? Is that okay now? Is that okay with your book too?
Right. Or
That's
well,
the book is
knowledge.
the book itself says that the angel masquerades as an angel of light. I'm sorry, that the devil masquerades as an angel of light. So again, whoever was telling them what to write could have been the devil for all we know. And I think we've all been inspired by God at some point. Have you ever been talking and you say something just comes out perfect, or you're writing something and it comes out
Totally.
perfect, and you're like, that's like, I feel like I was inspired at that moment, but it doesn't mean it gives me permission to put it in a book, say it's God's word, and then pass it out to people. That
Yeah.
doesn't for
well,
me. I
and
mean,
they
go ahead.
they put you in a catch-22 shoebox where they'll sit there and say every word of the Bible is true, but it's also by divine inspiration written by men. And at the same time, you're not allowed to take away from it, or it'll take away from your riches in heaven, and you can't add unto it, or it'll add the bad things to blah blah blah. Like they put you in this catch-22 of it is only the exact way that we teach it, no more, no less. And the second, like we've talked about that whole contradictory hypocrisy so many times, where it's like they say that you can't lose your salvation, but if and you'll know a child of God by their fruits. So if you're not producing the fruits that they say you should be producing, then you may not be saved. But you also can't lose your salvation. So they put you in this constant state of fear
Mhm.
that you may not be saved, that it's not by works, it's by faith. But you'll also know them by their works, because apparently that just automatically happens as soon as you get saved. And it's like, but that doesn't happen overnight. There's not been a person that has gone into a deep meditation or gone on a fucking crazy shroom trip or ayahuasca trip that came back and didn't see the effects of those changes over sometimes a very long period of time. Even if you do consider it a spiritual what's it called, experience, it's not going to be overnight. You still have habits. And the idea that you can't lose your salvation, but you're going to know them because of what they do, yet salvation isn't about what you do, it's by faith. The whole thing is just you're going to believe exactly what we believe, you're going to behave exactly how we tell you to behave, and if you don't, you're not one of us. That's
Sounds
the end
very
result to
human.
the whole thing.
Because it creates that same idea, right? So once you have those people's belief systems, then you can really dictate what they do, how they feel about things, because you know exactly what they think. You've told them what to think. And yeah, weird thing, because I
Right.
always have Christians say,
Right.
oh, well, why is it so prosecuted? Why is it so? It's the only thing that they try and get rid of. I try to get rid of. It's in every hotel drawer. Go to any bed, room in the hotel. There's a Bible in there, so they're giving them out for free. And you think that it's just crazy. They think the government's so powerful, they're turning these boys into girls, but they could never get rid of the Bible. They just, oh, we have to have it. No, I mean, it seems like it's definitely their design. And then Romans 13 is the one that nobody will ever be able to convince me is anything but written by the government. It tells you that governments are put here by God, that you're not to go against them. If you go against them, you bring damnation on yourself. That's not written by God. I'll laugh in anybody's face that tell me that it is. And yet they'll make up some excuse like, oh, well, it was about a different time when the governments were placed there by God. I'm like, and he wasn't smart enough to write that in there so that we would recognize that he's not talking about today. Clearly, the governments are not placed there by God. They're placed there by, not, by these groups like right now, at least the World Economic Forum, but they're put there and they're puppets. and they certainly are not put there by God. And to go against them is what you should do when they are taking away human rights or doing anything wrong. So it's the opposite of the Bible. So I spend every day doing the opposite of what the Bible says. So to me, it's just crazy. And then I'll always ask Christians, I'm like, how many people has God killed? They'll be like, well, he killed everybody at the flood and this. I'm like, see, here's the difference between you and me. I'm called a heretic, and I say God killed nobody. Why? Because I have no evidence of any time that God's ever killed a soul. So I said, why would I ever, if I'm going to accuse anybody of murder, it's going to be anybody on earth before God. God's going to be the last one. These guys go around and act like it's a great thing, and it's just, yep, he killed all these people, and yeah, he killed the firstborn, but he did it in justice, or what do they call it? Righteous. So when God kills, he does it for righteous reasons. And they're like, well, you're not able to question God because you're just a human and he's above you. I'm like, no, but he would know that I would question that. God would know that I would have questions about killing the firstborn of all Egyptians because they didn't worship him. I'm like, that's not the way that you get people to worship you. If God came and killed my son, you think I'd be like, all right, now we got to worship him? No, I'd be like, whatever you do, don't you ever worship that God ever.
Dude, I
Never.
was just thinking about that one the other day specifically because where else have we heard murdering innocent babies? Where else has that come
Just
up
about to
before?
go there. That's exactly where I was going. Like it's crazy because you'll hear especially these Old Testament stories. This is another really, really hard point of contention that I've had with my parents over the years, because they'll constantly reference the Judaistic laws written in the Old Testament, but at the same time they'll sit there and say, but Christ wrote a New Testament in his blood, and it's open to everyone, Gentiles, not just Jews. And I go, okay, so let's tack down some things here. Either the Old Testament is out or it's in. So if it's out, then all of the supportive texts that you guys like to create your own little doctrines off of, and that's a whole other thing that they do, this idea that piercings and tattoos are bad, because somewhere in fucking Leviticus, it says you shouldn't pierce yourselves through with many sorrows or make any marks upon your body. And then they immediately jump to the New Testament and say, you are not, for you're not your own, you are bought with a price, you're a temple of the Holy Ghost, right? And they always use that as a reason to get away from things that they feel aren't right, but then they'll pound 3 fucking pots of coffee and a 12-pack of soda and go eat McDonald's and not have anything to say about it, because to them, for whatever reason, that's not included in that. And I've had this talk with them so many times where I'm like, it's either out or it's in. And to Joe's point, I have yet in my life to have a solid answer. The answer I always get comes back to this. Why is it okay that God, even taking the Old Testament out and saying it's irrelevant now, according to the New Testament, why would God command his people to enter a foreign land, kill and rape every man, woman, and child? And the answer I always got was, well, that's because that people was so wicked that God didn't want them to procreate anymore. And it's like, so you're telling me that by inherently babies were so evil just because they were made up of the DNA of their parents that they needed to be slaughtered instead of saved and possibly given a new life where they won't be evil people? The answer I always followed that up with, well, we don't have all the answers. We just have to trust God. And
That's
I'm
the
like,
ultimate bad answer.
how about this? How about you go fuck yourself, and then you can also get me an answer, and then we'll talk. That would be better.
Or just why would you ever worship that? I mean, that's what I really think the point of life is to basically we're being tested in every different way. And one of those tests is, do you end up worshiping some character that doesn't have any worshipable traits? And the character of the Old Testament does not. Does the character of the New Testament? Sure. But it's not the same character. They try and tell me it's the same person. Oh no, Jesus did do the creation. Jesus is the one who flooded the world. It's like, that's not the same person. The one who says, love your enemies and turn the other cheek, is not the same one who killed the firstborn of all the Egyptians. It's a completely different character. But they want to tell you it's the same one and the reason they have to say that is because, he said, before Abraham, I am. So then they have to say, oh, he was. It's just a big hodgepodge mix up. And again, do I believe the first 2 commandments of Jesus, love God, love your neighbor? Absolutely. Do I think that some of the things he said were great, and could he have possibly been real? Yeah. Um, yeah, I think that that's definitely possible. But he said some things like, "No man has seen God's face or heard his voice." So who the hell was he talking about? Because had he read the Old Testament? God went face to face with Moses like they were friends. He spoke to to Moses, to Adam and Eve, to many people heard his voice, to Abraham. So it's just it's weird.
Yeah, he was wandering around the garden looking for him. Like,
Yeah. Where did you guys go? I
he
gotta
was
get. And
just
then he
all
went and got some
present, nobody
skins.
seen
They
him.
said he got some animal skins. So where did he get animal skins? He went out there and killed some cows and made some leather. I mean, it's just the whole thing is just kind of very, very questionable. And the one I hate is the one that we're all born in sin. Right? We're all sinners. We're all born in sin. That's weird to me because I don't feel like we get here and we might. But I said, why were we born in sin? They go, oh, because of Adam and Eve's first sin. So I said, I thought you said that there was no sin in the world back before Adam and Eve sinned. And they said, no, there wasn't. I said, okay, how would they have known what deception was? It'd be the equivalent. I tell a story like, let's say I got two sons, one's 5 and one's 15. And the 15-year-old, let's say he's a terrible kid. He's mean. He's goes and spray paints people's houses and throws rocks at them. So he's a bad kid. And the 5-year-old's in the kitchen, and let's say I tell him, hey, whatever you do, don't touch the stove. I got to go to the bathroom. If you touch the stove, it's hot. Don't touch it. So I leave and go to the bathroom. If the 15-year-old comes in and says, what are you doing? Oh, I'm watching the stove. He says, why don't you touch it? And the kid says, no, I'm not going to touch that. And he says, no, touch that stove. It'll make you an adult. You'll turn into an immediate adult if you touch it. And he'll say, why? But Dad told me not to touch it. Touch it. You'll see. You'll turn into an adult. If the kid touches the stove and burns himself, there's two people to blame there. Me for leaving him there with my 15-year-old shithead son, or the shithead son. The one person you don't blame is the child who doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. Well, in Christianity, the one person who got blamed is the ones who didn't know what they were doing. The ones who didn't know what deception was. It's the equivalent of the same thing. The devil came by and said, hey, no, if you eat from that tree, you'll live forever and you won't die. So to them who had never sinned, who didn't know sin, they wouldn't have known deception even existed. They would have thought he was being told the truth. And yet we're told the story that now every human that's ever been born since then is paying the price of these terrible sinners. At the beginning, who wouldn't have known? It's like my son touching the stove.
Really quick too, just with that story, just think about the psychology behind that in the idea, I mean, as humans, that this is a omnipotent, omniscient God who
Right.
created everything, and this is all now going on. So he made a world without sin. Okay. Why have the tree? Period. Like, if they're not supposed to fucking eat it, why put it right in front of them? That's like, again, a 5-year-old putting a donut out on a table, and not a hot stove that's going to hurt them, but a donut out on the table and being like, hey, I know you're fucking hungry, and you can eat all this fruit all the way around it. You can't have the donut. Let's say the 5-year-old has no idea what that donut tastes like, but it looks good. And he's going to sit there and go, now hold on a second. Out of all this awesome shit that I do love, how come I'm not allowed to have that? It's like, well, they weren't in that train of thought. They had never sinned. Their eyes hadn't been open. It's like, then why put the fucking donut there? And more importantly, why put the one guy that you don't like right next to the 5-year-old that's next to the donut that you shouldn't have put there? It's like, what kind of sick fucking sense of humor did that guy have? Where he's like, hey, watch this. Watch. I'm going to put the donut there.
Yeah,
it's got sprinkled. Yeah.
Check this out. I just was working on this project for the last 7 days, and my prime invention right here, I'm going to totally fuck with it. And then when it does the thing I know it's going to do, I'm going to fuck up the world for eternity.
They say that wasn't his intent either. It's like, if it wasn't his intent, then just erase everything. So the girl eats the apple, and you go, oh shit, they're not supposed to do that. Start over. Okay, you just
like a fucking etch-a-sketch. Like, oh, look at this. I spent 7 days making this masterpiece. I fucked it up right at the end. Shh. All right, let's try it.
Now of 100 billion humans are all going to be in pain and suffering and cancer and birth pangs, and because this. It's
all because they didn't listen to the first thing they were told. Because the big, high and mighty power, the main character of the Old Testament, as you said, he said the thing you're supposed to do. They didn't listen. Someone else came along and was like, hey, check it out. And he could have been right or wrong. It doesn't matter. Their character is in a story. But because they didn't listen, they were shamed. and they had pain and suffering. And that's the whole message with Christianity, or at least in church. And then it kind of bleeds out into the world. If you don't listen to what people are telling you, you're wrong. Like, I can't even tell you how many times my parents said, "Because I told you so."
Right.
Or, and we weren't allowed to question. And that's kind
They
of the
got that from
message that
God.
we all get.
That's
Yeah,
exactly what I got it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the message we all get. And then when we look into something else, we get slapped on the wrist or, kicked off YouTube or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, they tell you that anything coming from outside the Bible is from Satan, so that's a good start because you've already told people that. So again, so somebody comes outside and says, "Well, did you ever question this?" Or so even what we're talking about here, if somebody's a Christian and they're listening to us, they're thinking we are from Satan. We have to be because it's coming from outside the Bible. We're trying to go against it, and that's just crazy to me. I just want to be able to. Well, and I think every god that ever has been worshipped is the same God. I mean, Sheba is Jehovah,
Same idea.
is
Yeah.
Allah. They're just different cultures. The river god, the rain god of the Native Americans is the same God. It's just people
Well,
have
and that
different
actually can
beliefs.
be substantiated because almost all of those main religions also all have some part of their story where a global flood happened,
Mhm.
all virtually around the same time frame, give or take 1,000 years. But I think there's a total of like 26 or 27 main religions, and they all have a story about a global flood that killed everybody and had to start over.
Mhm.
Like,
Which might match up with some of the Atlanta stuff, Lemuria stuff. I mean, some of that stuff is pretty compelling. I don't think it's a lot. I don't think it's all made up. Um, but how does that work? What happened? Because all that could be combined as one thing. I mean, the mud floods, all that stuff is basically telling the story of some giant cataclysm of some type that kind of buried everything. I mean, because you figure, let's say there's I don't know how to explain. Let's say you turn the Earth, and I'm talking about a flat Earth model now because I don't refer to the spinning ball anymore. But if you think of the flat Earth, if you just kind of spun it half turn, let's just say real quick, think of all the water that would kick up. You would have just water wipe everything out. I mean, every building would be buried under mud, and you're talking about not just a couple 100 feet. You're talking about a ton. And you would have these chasms in the ground below you, right? You would have caverns, you would have tunnels, you would have caves, which we seem to have a lot of. I think there's so much going on underneath us that we don't know.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, for me, that's basically one of the hard things. Because a lot of people that listen to me are Christian because being a flat earther and talking about that a lot. There's a lot of people who just latched onto that being Christian and it matching their Bible that they just say, "Oh, this must be true." Which I agree. If you're a Christian, I find it hard to believe you would ever believe in a spinning ball because that doesn't match anything out of that book. But I just chalk it up to, well, they wrote back when people thought the Earth was flat, so they say things in the Bible that match that worldview, like that it's on its
Yeah.
foundations, it can't be moved. But you certainly have to be, if you're a Christian and you believe in the ball, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, I did want to caveat that whole last, I don't know, half hour of I know we have Christians that listen to our show too, and we're not totally ripping on it. You gotta admit that some of this has to be questioned, right? Unless you're of the opinion that you should never question anything, then we can't have a conversation. But
Hey,
that's
I'll
all
be
I'm
the
saying.
first one to
Just look
admit
into
I grew up Christian, and I think I'm a good person because of it. So I'm certainly not anti-Christianity or anti even deciding how to raise my son. I mean, obviously, it's going to be more of a little. It's not going to be, oh, you have to pray to Jesus and these kinds, because I don't really believe that. But I do think telling each person is a part of the Creator, and kind of that Christian mindset is okay to have. I mean, it's in the right direction at least. But you just go back in history and look at all that's been done under that name, and there's a problem. There's a problem. We've got the Pope. They're sitting on the most valuable art collection of all time, and then telling us to donate to the poor. It's like, what are
yeah.
you talking about? Why are you sitting on all that art? Why don't you sell some? So again, it's just hypocrisy, and I just feel like we should be able to choose who we pay worship to, and so me personally, I think God's inside each of us. I think that the best way I can describe God is probably that devil and that angel that you used to see on cartoons, one sitting on each shoulder. And that's basically how life is, right? We have a choice often to do the right thing or do the wrong thing. When you're at a store and you're looking at an item, you're like, I could totally steal that. Well, the reason you don't is because the morals that have been placed in you, even if you know you could get away with it and there's nobody who would see you, You still don't because you know that you're going to be thinking about it later, and you're going to be thinking that you did wrong. So I think that the pains that we feel inside of us are God. And so people always time say, "Oh, well, the devil's doing this or Satan's doing this." And I don't believe that there's any such character, but inside you is the devil. Inside you is the adversary, right? It's the one telling you to do the bad things. And if you kill one person, I'm sure you feel like shit. And if you kill two, you probably don't feel as bad. And if you kill three, you might not care anymore, and you might like the fourth, fifth, and sixth one. So
And
that's
then you
just
go gay.
yeah, exactly. So no, but I'm certainly not ripping on any. My mom was a believer in Christianity her whole life, but she always told me Jesus would come back in her lifetime. So did my grandparents. So then when I calculated back 2,000 years and figured out that it's about 60 generations, that means that 60 of my ancestors, 60 of my grandparents backwards, believed the same thing probably, and they always believed it was the end times, and they always believed that there'd be wars and rumors because there's always going to be wars and rumors of wars. That's never
Yeah.
not going to be happen. So, but I hear people all the time say, as soon as Putin started talking war and this and that, I saw people posting, there'll be rumors of wars, and this means the end is here, and these things must happen before Jesus comes back. I'm like, guys, we cannot keep falling for this trick. Like, why not fight against him? And then if Jesus comes back, be like, Jesus, bro, what's up? We've been waiting for you. Help
My
us out.
dude.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I like what
everybody
you said though
on the
about
couch
how
chilling.
yeah, growing up Christian, yeah, it's definitely I don't have a problem with them at all. They're very great people. The problem I have is uh the reason that they're good people is because of a fear
Great point.
of ultimate damnation. That's not where else have we heard fear-based and trauma-based mind control before? Remember we talk about that a lot. Like that's the only reason is because they know
Right,
it's not because they love God so much. Maybe some of them do, but the only reason they chose God is because he said, "I'm going to fuck you up forever if you
right.
don't."
And
So
that's the worst love,
your
right? I mean,
ultimatum.
that's like a girl that stays with her husband because he tells her if she leaves, he's going to beat her. She doesn't love him. She's deathly afraid of him. And you know what? If she does love him, it's called Stockholm syndrome. It means that eventually she's fallen in love with her captor, which is what we have going on really in Christianity because it's not a worship worthy character. First of all, that is the least just punishment in the history of all times ever could be, where you have 100 years of life on the earth, and if you're bad, you get an eternity of damnation. That's not just. That's not.
Yeah.
That's it's the worst. What if we did that? Like you stole that
Sadistic.
apple, life in jail. Be like, no, nobody would stand for that. That's not okay. They made a mistake. All right, give them a little slap on the wrist. But no, God, if you just don't proclaim His Son, then eternity and hellfire and screaming and gnashing of tongues and stuff. So to
That
me,
kind
it's just not a worship worthy character. And so at that, I think people who make that decision, because it takes balls to say, nope, I'm not going to worship the character, even if he tells me by not worshiping him, I'm going to hell forever. Um, but I think that that's step one to really um, owning your own beliefs and owning your own technically God. Because people tell me, oh, you just want to be God. I'm like, no, I didn't say that. Like you said, but God's inside you. I'm like, yeah, God's inside me. He's inside you, but I'm not inside you. So no, I'm not trying
yeah.
to be God. Yeah, depends on who I'm talking to, right? Depends on how legit my bad is, but you have to,
Uh,
you have to, you have to make those decisions yourself. And I think that to be told, believe in that guy, believe in God, he's just, he's righteous, and not be able to see evidence of that, to me makes no sense. You'd
yep.
expect to see, and again, I think it has a lot to do with you can tell the things that God does in the Bible are things humans do. They're not things gods do, right? So, like, if a God needs to flood the world, wouldn't he just snap his fingers and everybody disappears and then it would just go on with it? Why would you bring water down to flood them unless you're a demonic entity? That's what humans we drown people because we can't snap our fingers and make them disappear. If we could, we would. Somebody don't like, gone later. We wouldn't go and drown them, and we're pretty terrible people for the most part. But God, He has the opportunity to snap His fingers and chooses not to. Chooses instead to flood them with water. I mean, old ladies and old men and babies were drowned, which is like the worst way to die. And
Yeah.
their excuses,
They were
oh,
so evil,
they were
dude. They
so
had
evil.
to be.
They were so evil, right?
Well,
And
and then
again,
the ones he saves is one very, very close family to repopulate the whole earth. I've never heard anybody explain why God would tell them to fuck their sisters and mothers to repopulate the earth. There's never been a straight answer on that. Literally, never a straight answer. So, I, there's something, but they don't have all the questions, and you got to take it on faith, and that's where the conversation stops. And I peace out. So,
and I get it. Yep, and I get it. And I just say, be a good person. What's wrong with that? But they won't ever say that to you. They won't come to you and say, "Yeah, just be a good person." It's, "Well, you better find Christ or you're burning in hell." So it's like, okay, well, the next thing we want to talk about,
And then they'll
'cause,
call you a heretic for saying things like you said about, God being inside all of us. That's heresy.
say
Oh
that.
my God.
Yeah, even though it's like, I believe God sees the world through each of our eyes, which is funny. The Bible even says through the image, we're all made in the image of God. Now, people take that to
Like
mean like the
fractal, right?
form, but again, and these words have all been translated. They're not the originals. These have been rewritten, and there's scribes who used to have to write by hand. So, if the king comes behind him and says, write this, and this, or else you're going to die, guess what? That guy wrote what he was told to. So it's that easy, and there's no way God would ever expect us or demand that we believe words on paper written by men. Now, maybe if there was a golden book at the North Pole that was open that anybody touched and they got shocked, and it was this, you could read it in whatever language you spoke. The book spoke that language. Okay, now I can see us saying this. The book looks pretty divine. But their excuse always for the divinity of it is that it makes predictions in the Old Testament that come true in the New Testament. It's like, yeah, well, if Stephen King writes a book and things that he predicts in chapter 2 come true in chapter 8, that's not a sign that it's divine. That's a sign that whoever wrote chapter 8 had read chapter 2. That's all. And that's kind of the way it works.
Well, that's going back to what Ben said earlier about how the Bible says itself, if you add or take away from this, that's just as bad as the worst sin or whatever, however the verse goes.
Right.
That pretty much sounds like something a government would do, first of all. And second, who compiled the Bible that included that verse? A king,
Right.
a man, as far as we know, a human. And it says in that Bible, the authorized King James Version. Why would it say fucking authorized? Because he was like, these are the ones I want together. Leave all the other ones out. Book of Enoch. Don't let them read that one. So that's why the Gnostics get called the heretics, is because they think that everything was basically flipped from the way that we're told in the Bible, which a lot of it makes sense. Have you ever talked to Miguel Connor about this shit?
No, who's that? Miguel Connor.
He's got a show called Aeon Bite. If you're interested in Gnosticism, go check it out sometime. He's very intelligent and quite a scholar.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. But yeah, the proofs I get are always, go look at Ron Wyatt. He discovered the Ark, and then you even talk to Christians and say, no, that's not really true. Or look at the little fragments. What are they called? The little scrolls, the little old scrolls, Dead Sea Scrolls.
Oh yeah.
Those match the original. I'm like, okay, even if they match, it doesn't mean God wrote it. Just because you found old fragments that match the new book or whatever. And again, it's all said in the book itself. The book itself is its proof, which is we can never consider that true, right?
I gotta pick this bone because as soon as people start bringing up versions and translations, that's when I kind of fly off my nut. The fact that Dead Sea Scrolls, the Textus Receptus, all of that shit was translated into basically old Aramaic, I believe, and then from there, because it was in Hebrew and Greek, and then it got translated, and then from there it got translated into a couple other languages prior to English. I believe the English one was actually translated off of Martin Luther's translation into German. And then the English version has 7 translations. Well, wouldn't you fucking know it? The prized possession of the English Bible, the 1611 King James Version, says in it, the word of God has been tried by fire, tried 7 times. Well, wouldn't you know that was the 7th translation? It's the whole thing is, you're telling me after 12 translations through multiple languages, including English, because the first version of English was in such old English, you can't read it today as a language unless you fucking know it and studied it. You're telling me that in 12 different translations, the one that is your prized possession maybe doesn't have a couple errors in it. I find that very hard to believe.
Then they'll say, "Oh, well, God kept all the message in there. God kept it the way that He wanted."
That's it. You're right. Yep.
A good call. Yeah. I get it.
Conversation over. Right.
There's so many fail safes in the Bible. It's great.
Oh, it's pretty airtight for the most part, except for the whole fucking your mom and your sister thing. Still haven't heard a good answer to that.
Yeah, but
one.
your parents are so down with that. They're brothers. They're brothers, and they were raised very religiously, and they're so on board with the Bible. But I don't think they would be okay if you fucked your sister.
No.
But if you were but
I've
it would
actually
be really
asked 'em.
funny. I'm not saying
No,
you
they
should,
would say that we're going
that
to
would be weird.
hell.
But if you showed the exact Bible phrase where they're like, "No, it's okay. This dude did it right here."
Well, that's
That'd be
the
cool.
thing. It was more it was it wasn't explicitly said that God said fuck your sister and your mom. There was just a very close family that got off the ark, and he said, "Go be fruitful and multiply," to the people that were on the ark. There was
Yeah.
nobody left but those people. So he was basically implicitly telling them go fuck each other. Which sounds like something
Go
there-
fuck
well,
He
yourself.
also he demanded animal sacrifice. I mean, this is what you would never teach people that way. You know, oh, you did bad? Go kill that animal. You've done so wrong by me. But what if I did that to my son? People would put me in jail. What if? I mean, I've asked
And
people
then there's
before,
Abraham and Isaac.
right? I've said before, if God came to you in your dream tonight and told you to go kill your son, you would? Yep, I would. It's like, oh wow, then you deserve to be put away. I mean, that's
Yeah.
not okay. I'll
Yeah,
tell
that
God.
sounds more like
You
the
kill him.
actions of somebody who deserves to be in hell.
Right.
There is one thing with I know that you mentioned one family, be fruitful and multiply. When Adam and Eve got out of the garden and they had Cain and Abel, they told Cain, which at this point neither one of them were married. As if I'm not mistaken, at that part in the story, and now I'm doubting myself and I might be wrong. Long story short, neither one of them were married at
it's
that point. I don't know if they
421.
had brother. I don't know if they had sisters. I'm not high though.
When he sent the one away, you mean?
What's that?
When he sent Cain away, you mean?
Correct.
There was no, they didn't have even sisters yet.
That's what I was thinking. Okay, it was just the
Yeah.
two. But wouldn't you
Yep.
know it, he went and founded a city and then a land.
And found a wife. It says he went and
right.
found a
That's
wife. Yeah.
exactly. So he founded the land of Canaan and the Canaanite people, which later got wiped out by basically the ancestors of his brother. And I'm all, hold on a second. So there's this whole theory that the Bible revolves around the first people he made when it wasn't the only people he made. And I actually think that that is probably more or less spot on, if you can believe any of it. He went, this is my hypothesis group. We're going to see how they do in an enclosed cage. Oh, shit, they failed. They ate the donut. So let's kick them out. And I'm just going to put a whole bunch of people around like this. Oh, he fucking killed his brother. God damn it. You didn't give me a blood sacrifice, you piece of shit.
I mean,
Go
damn it.
over there
You only gave me lettuce.
and find somebody else to fuck. Like,
Well, the blood sacrificing is interesting because I heard that. I mean, Christians today will say that only applied to the Jews in the Old Testament, of course. But that I was like, it's still the same God, though, right? That's that same one that
yeah.
I probably wouldn't be happy if we did that today, the Jesus God. And they're like, yeah, well, sin needed a blood sacrifice, and so until Jesus came, they needed a blood sacrifice. I'm like, that is fucking sadistic. God can do anything. How about if somebody sins, he just didn't do that and didn't require that? He can make the rules. Like,
Yeah, he can make the rule. They make it seem like he has to play by some rule. Oh no, the sin of what do they call it? The sin of death is the sin of death is blood. The payment for death is blood, or the payment for sin is blood. Something, whatever they say. It's like, yeah, but he makes the rules, so it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to. And I always tell people too. They act like Jesus
he's
is
literally
this-
anything except that.
right, and they act like Jesus is this huge sacrifice. And I keep saying, but what is the sacrifice? It's when you give up something shitty. Or something good. I mean, for something shitty, right? You have to make it's like a concession or something. But Jesus gave up a shitty life on earth to be God. So that's the opposite of a sacrifice. In fact, I don't know of any human that lives on earth that if they were come to and said, hey, will you take one day of beatings and you get to become God? They would all say yes. So it's not that impressive. It's not, I don't understand what's so impressive about it. And if he was God.
Yeah, I would definitely go through 3 days of crucifixion to just know that I was going to come back, be better, and fucking fly up to this magical Blarney Stone of a place
Mansion.
where none of that ever happens anymore. And the idea that he's everywhere, like, oh, he created time and space. It's like, okay, so you're telling me that if I shit on this desk right now, he couldn't essentially go back in time, take the shit away, shove it back up. I would never know the difference, and nobody else would either. So if you go and kill someone and God's like, haha, can't do that, boop, all of a sudden it's all back. You don't even know that you killed him and then it reversed. It just wouldn't have happened all in an instant. So if there is that kind of power, or to your point, the whole idea of him coming down, it's not really a sacrifice. It's like, then why did he? And of course the Christians always go, well, that's just how much he loved us. And it's like, but that's not that much then.
That's a scary doctrine too to teach people, because you've taught people now that they can apologize at any time, which I do believe. I do think you can never go too far away to kind of earn your stripes back. But what you've taught people is that we're all born of sin, right? We're all born in sin. We're all sinners. We all have negative thoughts. We're all garbage in God's eyes. And then we can be forgiven simply by asking for forgiveness. Well, the problem with that is when I start hearing about these priests diddling with kids and things like that, you start thinking to yourself, well, wait a second. They're part of a religion that tells them that they are evil and wicked, and that they were born in sin, and that they have evil thoughts, and that, yeah, we're all evil anyway, and all you have to do is ask for forgiveness and you're forgiven. So doesn't that lead those people to think what they're doing is not the end of the world, right? Because they're like, well, yeah, but I have evil thoughts. I am born evil. I'm born wicked. And if I do this because I slip a little bit, well, I just need to pray to Jesus and be really, and they might really believe that. I'm not saying that it's like, oh, they're pretending that. No, they might really believe
100% you.
100%. Yeah. So that's always weird to me too. But it's just so prevalent everywhere that it's hard, and people take it as a direct attack on them. And again, it's just like, well, look into it, because like you said, I mean, in that first story of Cain and Abel, Abel brings him an animal, dead fat animal blood, and then Cain brings him the first fruits of the harvest. So why is it? And then it doesn't say a reason. It says God was happy with Abel and not with Cain. So again, if God wrote it, wouldn't he tell us what Cain did wrong? Otherwise, we're looking at it saying, wait, so we're not, you don't want fruits and vegetables, you want dead animals.
Dead animal. Yeah.
Right. And God even says, in I think somewhere in the Bible, oh, I love the sweet smell of the burning flesh. Yeah, I mean,
have you ever smelled that? It is putrid. It's disgusting.
Yeah. So it leads me to think that I do think that the elite wrote it, and I think that it's used as a tool. And then people love to point out all the 666 symbolism and things like that. I think it's all done on purpose. I think CERN having a 666 logo is done on purpose, because it I want to say reinvigorates, it reconfirms the people's beliefs already, right? So if you already believe in Christianity and you believe in God and you believe in Jesus and Satan, and then you see that Monster Energy drink is a 666 in Hebrew and it says, unleash the beast on the back, it doesn't make you think anything other than, oh, Christianity is definitely real. These guys hate it. They worship Satan, and I need to be over here. And then the book says, let evil be evil, let wicked be wicked. I don't think God would say that. That's not a good way to have the earth be run well. But that guy's being evil, wicked, let him go. No, you should end that. You
playing both sides against each other. The divide and conquer thing we talk about all the time. It's
to tell you the truth, the first time that I heard that about the Monster Energy drink, I was like, cool.
I'm gonna go get one.
I'm gonna go drink.
I mean, Google's a 666, OBS is a 666 logo. It's encoded pretty much everywhere.
Everything's a fucking number. Like, all right, we're done. Like, shit.
There's only so many numbers.
There's only 1 through 9 and a 0. They love to say they can predict sports. Like, oh, they know this. Like, dude, everybody's wearing a jersey. Everybody's got a batting average. Everybody's got an ERA. They've all got a win-loss record. How many home wins does this coach have? I mean, you could turn that into anything. And they always draw the numbers together after the event. It's like, why don't you do it before the event and tell us what's going to happen, not after the event? Anybody can do that.
I said the same thing not that long ago. I'm like, if this could help us with future events, that would be great. Doing it retroactively is kind of cheating.
Were you talking about numerology?
Yeah,
because we talk about
it's tough though, because the 33s, there are some things that do happen for sure.
There are, for sure. But if you take every single thing and try to make something so important every single time, it's literally a distraction to the point of your life. There's something bigger that we all should be doing, and it's not diving deep into how everyone's a shill or numbers mean everything and the Bible's definitely real. It's
We're
all
giving
just
credit to these guys. We give them way too much credit. We give, at least not me, but I mean other people, that they encode 33 and everything, and they encode all this stuff, and they're fixing sports. I'm like, why would they need to fix sports? Sports does a good job at what they want it to do, distract, builds that kind of tribal mentality. It does all that on its own. You don't need to fix the sports. Sporting events are exciting simply because you have two great teams or two groups of athletes going against each other. So it's sometimes you're going to have close games. Sometimes you're going to have a blown play at the end. Sometimes you're going to have a touchdown at the last second to go. That's exciting in and of itself. You don't need to script that. You don't need to script sports, but they think, somebody told me the other day that they have magnets in the basketball, and sometimes they turn on the magnet ring or the
Oh my
magnet.
God.
Yeah, they're serious. And their evidence of that was like showing me a Steph Curry 3-pointer from like 10 feet behind the line. And I'm like, so you think that there's magnets in that ball and that you could throw it up there and it'll like suck it towards the rim? Like, what the hell kind of
I don't even
That would be a pretty hilarious
that.
TikTok to make, though. But yeah, I don't think sports need to be fixed either. I think once in a while there's people not high up elite people. I just mean people in the league or
Right.
coaches. There's got to be some money laundering or some fixing
absolutely.
going on at
Fixing
some
going on,
point.
sure, but not like scripted. Not like, okay, it's going to come down to the final play in the fourth quarter, and this guy's going to run this way, and we're going to let him score. That people think that actually is true, but no.
Like choreographed.
because of movies, because movies do that all the time. They pre-program us with like,
Right.
okay, we're gonna set you up in the third quarter, blah blah blah. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But some game,
Or
like the Super Bowl this
like
year, I
the
didn't watch any of it, but wasn't it like a terrible game? I mean, it was like a blowout or something, or I don't remember what
I
it
didn't
was. But
watch.
yeah, neither did I. So, but whatever it is, it's like, well, then why would those exist? And they're like, so that you can say that. It's like, oh boy, so now they're even scripting shitty games. So, but I mean, come on, does NBA tell their referees, hey, we'd like to see this go 7 games for the finals? I think so, easily, absolutely. If the referees
Yeah.
can, favor one team or another just so they can get more games, that's follow the money. They get more money, the more people show up, the more games there are, the more TV rights. So that's different than saying it's scripted. But I played sports, and I know people who played professional sports, and there's no way they show up at a baseball game like, all right, you're going to strike out in the first inning, hit a ground ball in the second. It's just not going to happen. But there's people who believe that. There's people who believe every wrestler in WWE that's a girl is a man. I mean, it's just
of
insane.
course.
Yeah. But all I can do is say, let them. I don't want to tell people what they can or can't believe. So whatever they want to believe, but just don't try and force it on me.
Yeah, have at it. Whatever you want to believe. I don't care. Yeah, don't force it on me. Don't do anything physically to somebody else because of what you believe. First of all, that seems to be a big problem
We should
in
write
religion.
our own 10 commandments, guys.
I
think
know.
we
Like
Well,
it.
dude, we're at the hour mark, and Ben has to go night. He gets up really early in the
Is he
morning.
already
But
sleeping?
he's
okay.
about to. But
close.
it was awesome having you on.
Wait, so you guys are brothers?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Okay. All right.
yeah, and Jen's my wife. We're not all just friends. I mean,
No,
we're all
I
friends.
don't. I don't know.
No, I'm his
Tell
sister.
by
We
the
fuck
voices
sometimes because the
and
Bible says
and
that's fine.
facial
So and him
expressions.
too? So a 3-way thing going on here? Okay.
Oh, why not? God said to.
Yeah.
But one more time, tell
Sure.
our listeners where we can find you, and we'll get you out of here.
Yeah, just if you want to find all the links, linktr, linktr.ee/Jeranism, or on YouTube, Jeranism, or on Rokfin. Jeranism, Jeranism. And yeah, I'm all over the place talking about anything you could possibly imagine. And it's always different than what you believe, but that's kind of the point. It should be that way.
Hell yeah.
I
What a
tell
way-
people all the time, it's my
great way
opinion.
to
It's
close.
not your opinion. If we all had the same opinion, what kind of a shitty life that would be? Like,
Be
what do you want
boring.
for dinner? And everybody just says the exact same thing. And there'd be a restaurant with one meal, and then we all eat that. And it would be
Lasagna.
shitty. No,
Just
I'd like
lasagna.
people with different opinions.
Hell
Vegetable
yeah.
lasagna, is
All
that
right,
what you
dude.
said?
I said just lasagna.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Good. I was
yeah,
going to say
but-
vegetable lasagna. I'm like, that sounds terrible.
No, that does sound fucking gross. No,
It does. Give me some meat in my lasagna, please.
right?
Yes, beef. Dude, thanks so much. We'll be
Thanks, guys.
catching up with you soon, I'm sure, and we'll see you around the Rokfins. And thanks to everybody in the live chat. And I'll put your links in the show notes on the audio.
Thanks, and it's good to know
Thanks,
finally
Jeran.
what legit bat is. I'm very happy to know. I feel
Our bats are not always legit, about half the time, and about
speak for
50%.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Have a good night.
Later, guys. Happy 420.
Hell yeah.
Peace.